Alright, today's crisis of the day is the garden bench. She's doing alright, been working pretty good. Got a little burn on there from the pizza oven the other day. So the issue is, I don't know if we'll be able to see it down here. This side looks all good, but this side's bowing down in the middle a little bit. And that is due to this over here. It's all cracked along here. I dropped something heavy on here the other day, and this thing gave up the ghost. So we'll be trying to repair this guy today. Got a couple pieces of this aluminum here. It's like a 1/16 of an inch thick. Hopefully this can go on. Let me sit down here. Hopefully this goes on the side like that. You can see how bad it is. If I get that all aligned, then this end is out. And 3/4 of an inch there. But this guy should work pretty well. The only issue I'm worried about is buckling. I'll put some holes in here and attach it on there. We might get some buckling up at the top here, so maybe I can find a little bit of a thicker piece to go along the top there. Weld around there, and then we can screw this whole thing on. And it should be, the bottom should be fine because that'll be in tension. The top will be in compression, and we can get that piece on there to hold it all nice. We'll have some sharp corners left, but I think we can cut those off, and I think we can salvage this one. Well, that didn't take too long. Got this little profile here. This is actually a piece of angle stock that I think we cut down the length with a table saw. Turns out you can actually cut aluminum just fine on a table saw, chop saw, whatever you got, as long as it's got those carbide teeth on it. Works real great for that because aluminum's so soft. As long as you keep it gentle, don't try to go too fast. Anyways, I think this will work out. Just set this right on the side like that, and maybe we can run some little beads along the top there, kind of stitch it together along the top, put some more in here, and then fill this guy with some holes so we can get it all screwed up on there pretty nicely. Let's go weld it. Alright, so I got this piece cut a little bit shorter here. There we go, these are the same length, just about now. I've also got this other camera out so we can check out the welding. We'll see aluminum welding for the first time. I hope this goes well. Also got the acetone out because aluminum welding never goes well for me, so we're going to give it the best shot of success by actually cleaning everything this time. I sure hope this works. I sure hope this is the solution to all my problems. Let's get this cleaned off. This stuff is so cold because it dries off so fast. Just from this single piece. Look at all that nastiness that came off on there. And then I'm only cleaning this one side, so let's just weld it on that side. There we go. That job's done. Let's get set up to do some welding here. Alright, so I've got this whole thing tacked up. Put a bunch of tacks along this whole length. Just kick the chair there. And some on the back too, just to keep this whole thing closed up. None of them look that great, but that's okay. I learned some stuff when we did this. Apparently, it's important to have a clean electrode. If you get some aluminum on there, it works okay when you're doing steel, but when you're doing aluminum, absolutely not. It makes a mess. Alright, so I'm going to try to set up the camera so we can do a little time lapse of, I'm not going to weld this whole thing out, that'd be ridiculous. Just maybe a third of it? I don't know. It's always good to have some more practice on this kind of thing. So yeah, let's try it out. So this section is a sped up time lapse. I think I sped it up about 8 times of me just welding all along there. I turned the audio off for this section. Sometimes the time lapse kind of audio sounds really neat, like when you're hitting something with a hammer. But in the case of AC TIG welding, it sounds absolutely horrendous. It's like an awful screeching, dying noise. So I'll spare you having to listen to that. So that last section was welding down, and you can see some of the welds I have on here. And now this section is welding all along the back of it. We'll see later that this didn't turn out to be a good idea, but yeah, it was fun to do. So now, in these couple shots, I'm sorry it's not perfectly on the frame there, but I'm coming into the frame a little bit as we go along. These were filmed with my Galaxy S7 active camera that I showed in the holder that holds all the lenses in front of it to darken the image so you can actually see it with the camera. I showed that, I think, in my last video, so go watch that if you want to see how I made that. This turned out really well with the aluminum. I can actually see what's going on in the video here. Well, you can see what's going on, and I think that's pretty neat. I still have a lot of stuff to learn with aluminum welding, and so far I've been having much more trouble welding aluminum than I have with welding steel. But these arc shots still look pretty neat, and I'm glad they came out this way. Alrighty, let's have a review of how that went. Let's start with the best things and then move on to the not so great things. We'll bend this back a little bit. Alright, so the last thing we saw there was this bead right on the back. And this, it was super fast. I didn't add any extra filler material. I just did a fusion weld, I guess you'd call it, all the way along that back. So that worked out pretty well. It fused up really quick, and I just went along that whole thing. It's really easy. If you had smell-o-vision, you'd be able to smell this thing. The block got a little toasty. It's super hot still, so I'll just use my glove as an oven mitt. Got a little warm there. Alright, let's flip it over and look at the other side. Alright, so I'll throw in some pictures of these welds here. Some of them went really well. Some of them went not so well, and you might notice one more thing if I flip this back up on its edge. This is not exactly the straightest piece. I'm not super worried that this isn't straight, because I can just clamp it right onto the 2x4 and it'll straighten right out. That's no big deal. And that's because I did this top weld. It really heated up the backside, and when it all melts and then it cools again, it likes to shrink. So this whole backside shrunk slightly more than the front side did, introducing a curvature along that entire length there, as we can see. And now coming in at this corner, well, so all these welds went pretty well. At this corner you can see some discoloration and some porosity in there. And so I had some issues getting that to go, and I stuck the tungsten in the puddle a little bit, and I just tried to press on and figured it would sort itself out. I noticed that when we do aluminum welding, that is not the thing to do. If you dip the tungsten, pause, cool down, take the tungsten out, go resharpen it, and get the aluminum off there. Because if you try to just blast through it and just keep going, it'll get really nasty and basically melt the whole layer underneath, but it'll create a huge amount of oxide on the surface, and the surface won't, the two sides of the weld won't come together into one, or you'll have a really hard time getting the filler metal to go in there nicely. So yeah, just want you to I just want to try to not hide anything and show my experiences with you, the successes as well as the failures. But overall, I think this thing came out pretty well. I hope you enjoyed the arc shots that I got there. That was pretty exciting. I think it turned out pretty well with the aluminum. It's really reflective, and I can really see what's going on. So anyways, oh, and one more thing with this. You can see how bumped out this is on the back because it melted. I'll add some more pictures. But you can see how much it melted and kind of sagged right there. So I'll go along and grind out any issues like that. And then we can put some holes in here and get this thing bolted on the bench. So we're back a day or so later. Today's a real rainy day. You can see how wet it is outside. So we got this table pulled up onto the porch here to finish working on it, because hopefully we're going to use it tonight to put the pizza oven on, and I want it all nice and flat, so it'll work well. So from the other day, we had this piece all welded up. I was really happy with how that was. Remember, it was a little bit bent in that direction before, but I got it straightened out a little bit. And so now it's pretty good. So I went to test fit this guy on the bench here. Let me show you. So, and put this thing up underneath, and it fit pretty nicely. I was like, yes, perfect. We did a great job. This is going to be excellent. And I was like, wait a second. The whole point we're trying to solve is the curvature in this bench. That means this is bent, which means that if this thing fits perfectly, this thing is bent too. And, well, what do you know? It is not just a little bit bent, it is super bent. So I'll throw in some pictures here, but you can see the gap that's formed in between there, and that's not just a weird shadow or anything. That is a gap between these two pieces. This piece here is straight. This piece used to be straight, and now it's got this big old curve along the length. I think this happened when we were, obviously it happened while we were welding on there, and whenever you weld something, it always constricts a little bit, but I had really not expected it to constrict that much. Additionally, when I got it flattened back out a little bit, it sat down in this plane really nicely, and it ended up bending in this plane, which I was really not expecting. So that's too bad that happened, but it's not the end of the world. We'll just take a different route, and now we know that happens. I guess I could have done two pieces, one piece on the top and one piece on the bottom, and then gone back and forth a little bit and held it all together, and we wouldn't have had nearly as bad of an issue. And it's always important to keep the things clamped down and check them frequently to make sure that you're still going along in a good direction. But anyways, I think I figured out a good direction to take this. So instead of using this piece, I'll just take two of these things, because I have kind of have a whole stack of these things here. So I'll just lay two of them down on top of each other, just double it up, and then take these pieces and slap them up under here, and just put a bunch of screw holes in and screw them all in along that length. So it's not as cool as it could have been with all the welding, but that's all right. The important thing is, well, we certainly learned, and hopefully we'll get this thing to work in a couple minutes here. So I'll go put some holes in this, make the corners nice, and we'll come back to attach it on there. All right, so I got these two things clamped together. I cut the ends off right here, and then I laid out a bunch of holes all along the length. There are some pre-existing holes in here, so I just kind of incorporated them and added some more holes, so they'll fill a nice pattern once we put this thing all together. A nice trick to do a couple things at once is just clamp them together at both ends. That's pretty nice. And I drew these things on in permanent marker and Sharpie. I don't know if this is really a trick, but these are really nice because you can just take isopropyl alcohol and just go over top of them, and they should just come right off. So all these marks are disappearing here, because I want this to look, not unfinished. Kind of going for a medium quality look here. There we go. Rest of them off. And then let's get these things unclamped, pick the table up after, and then put some screws in. The screws that I have selected are these guys here. These are, don't think they're really cheap screws, but they are really great. They have a Torx head in there, as you can see from the picture. That's what a Torx look like. They're kind of like a six-pointed star, and they work super excellent. They're really good for transmitting torque without pushing the bit up out of there. A little impact driver. So yeah, let's get this put on now. We're about done. This part of the video is sped up by a factor of 4, so I'll just narrate afterwards. I have the GoPro sitting out in the stones, and I'm looking back onto the porch. That's the whole table there, and my friend and my mother are sitting at opposite ends of the table, and they're holding those ends down. I have the orange bottle jack under the middle of the table, and it's pressing up on that chunk of 4x4, and it's raising the middle of the table to straighten the table out on that one side. And so once I get it up to straight with the bottle jack, then I'm taking this piece of aluminum there, and I'm just going along and screwing screwing it in across the entire length. And that should be able to hold the table stable and give some more strength to it so it doesn't break again in the future. So here's a couple pictures of the completed table. The aluminum piece is screwed up on there, and I think it looks pretty good. It should be pretty strong for a long time. We certainly learned a lot in this project about welding and what to do or what not to do while welding. But in the end, the table works great for what we used it for. And now we have the pizza oven out on there, and we made some great pizza that night. So that was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed my little video, and thanks for watching.